Hi, everybody. It is just after 3 p.m. here at the Erie Playhouse. Zach Flock alongside Kate Thiem. How are you, Kate?
I'm doing well. We're into our third hour.
I don't even know.
How long has it been?
I spent the night here, so
Are
what
the
do I know?
Newsies still starving?
I don't think they're here anymore.
Everybody wants to know, did you spend the night here, yes or no?
I can neither confirm nor deny. We'll see. I'll share that at the end of the day. We'll see how we do
set like a
donation-wise.
goal?
You know, maybe. So that's a good idea. So we are currently at $17,925. When we reach $25,000, I will share whether or not I actually spent the night here at the Erie Playhouse. Okay, on to the business at hand. Because no one really is all that interested in that, but
we should have had a dunk tank.
Next year,
Next
Kate.
year.
Write these
Okay,
down. We've got a lot of good ideas cooking for next year. We're very excited right now, though, because we have some folks who are normally heard but not always seen, and we want to make sure that you see these wonderful folks as well. They are members of our orchestra who are usually in the pit, but who are joining us above ground today. Thank you all for being with us.
And sitting to my left is our music coordinator, once again, Devin Yates.
Hello.
Devin, please tell the audience who we have here today.
All right, we have some pretty iconic people here today. Iconic. Jim, you're iconic. This is Mr. Jim Griffey. He is behind the drum set. And if you could see below us right now, there's a huge old setup, and we actually have him behind plexiglass because you're kind of loud. I say that lovingly. And then we have Liz Allward, who is our percussionist extraordinaire. They are both actually currently playing for Newsies. So thank you for being here. And then we have Renee McGill, who is a violinist, and she was last seen in the pit in Guys and Dolls.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we'd love to talk to you guys today, and I'll just remind that we will need to pass the mic just so we hear everybody, and Devin will hear you, I'm sure. So, Kate, do you want to jump in? I mean,
I certainly will. I think the question everybody needs an update on every Erie Gives Day is, Jim, what number show are you on?
Yep. Well, this is the current show, Newsies, is production number 483.
Wow.
I started at the Playhouse in 1973. I was still in high school. And before that, I did a couple shows at Mercyhurst College, but my career here at the Playhouse, where I've done the bulk of my shows over all those decades, is up to 483 productions. And 17 to go.
How many, I was just going to ask, how many do you usually play in a single year?
In a single, like in a season?
Like from like a 12-month cycle, how many shows do you play for?
Well, I don't know, it's probably like 5 or 6, I guess. It just, it depends on just what's going on, what I'm needed, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's probably like 5 or 6 a year.
I don't know who I was talking to the other day, but they were talking about how for your 500th show, if you could name any show to play, what would it be?
Tommy.
I knew you were
Again?
going to say that.
No hesitation.
Because we did it about 20 years ago, and it was a great production, but we're down in the pit in the front, and we all had to be cognizant of our volume and everything, and Tommy is the Who. It's loud. It's Keith Moon. And now that we have the incredible sound system, we have our sunken pit, everything is so much, we can play it the way it should be played, and hopefully by production number 500, I'll still have the stamina to do it.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you will.
I think
I'm sure you will.
I think I probably will. So yeah, if that's like the one big bucket list show, I'd love to revisit.
Now, Liz, I don't know if you keep track to the same degree that Jim does, but do you know what production you're on?
I have.
Yep.
I have no idea, Zach. I've done a lot.
Yeah. Any favorites on that list?
I have a lot of favorites, and usually they are Sondheim productions, which is the opposite of Jim Griffey. Jim's a groove guy. He likes to find a groove, and Sondheim doesn't let you have a groove. Yeah. But Sondheim lets you place things perfectly and exactly where he wants them, with a lot of different, with a lot of color. And, I kind of liken Jim and I as we're sportscasters, Jim is the play-by-play, and I'm the color coordinator as percussion. He lays
great.
it down, and I put the texture in there. And the seasoning. I love anything by Sondheim. Doing Sweeney Todd coming up in a little bit. Looking very much forward to that. Also, Newsies right now is a favorite of mine, just because we all, if we're playing multi-instruments, we all have instruments that we're especially strong on and instruments that we're weaker on, right? My strong instruments are timpani and snare drum, and Newsies has a lot of both of those. So I get to kind of showcase my skill set on those two things. It also has a lot of xylophone, which I'm not very strong on, but I play through it, and there are a couple of people who can know when there's mistakes, and a lot of people don't know when there's mistakes. So that's, a vast improvement over a few years ago, where I refused to play any mallet instruments at all because I'm vain and I didn't want to sound wrong. So now I just make the mistakes.
Sometimes wrong in Sondheim sounds right, though.
It
That's
does,
right.
though.
That's
It
right.
really
So-
does. It really does.
So
Liz.
I did have a couple follow-up
yeah, go ahead.
questions for you. We were talking before about your setup and all the different instruments that you have. Liz says that she actually has to write out and draw out her setup prior to a show, especially if there's lots of instruments. So my question was, how did you learn all of these extra instruments? And if it calls for a new instrument that you aren't aware of, how do you teach yourself that?
YouTube is a great friend when it's learning how to do something that's a completely different instrument, and just to get a basic feel for like a tabla, Indian tabla. It's a very specific kind of thumb and finger hit that is very difficult. It looks very easy, but very difficult. But if you can get one or two basic hits, conga, bongos, things like that, where you can get kind of one or two basic things and then just give it the right feel. And that's what, as a percussionist in musical theater, as long as you can get a grasp of the right feel of a song, the technique is less important than the feel. So you get a couple of basic things in, and then you just try your best to get better at it every time you do it. So, and then a lot of times I'll just go out and I'll buy or borrow or steal an instrument that I need for a particular production,
So what is the strangest thing you've ever used as an instrument in the pit? Because I
Okay.
know they're not always actual instruments that you play.
Okay, well, in Cinderella, there's an instrument called rubber udders, which is not something you can buy anymore. You can find them. They're a vintage instrument, and you can find them for like $100 or $150 on eBay sometimes. But they were made briefly and then discontinued, and it is the sound is kind of fluttery, squeaky sound, and is called for in 2 bars in Cinderella, where they're scaring mice and birds out of a bush on the chase scene. And I had somebody, Ken Diaz, made me rubber udders for that production. They weren't exactly the same.
Never
but-
has a sentence been said like
But
that.
yeah,
Ever.
he
It's not
made
something
me
I was
rubber
counting on
udders,
hearing today.
rubber
Or
udders.
again today.
He'd made them out of bicycle inner tube and little pieces of wood to let the air out and little shaker things. And so I had that, yeah.
Now,
Wow.
Renee, you only play one instrument at a time. What's that like?
Yeah, well, unless I have my 5-string. I do have an electric 5-string at home, so if you ever need that, I've got it ready to go. So that does give me the C string to play the viola too. But yes, I don't have to worry about it. I've never understood how some of you guys in the woodwinds, I could have like 5 different instruments. I'd be like, I wouldn't know which one to pick. What are we doing here? But hey, that's awesome that you can do that. So.
So my question is, when you are picking shows to play for, what draws you to play for a show?
Really, I grew up on like Rodgers and Hammerstein. Like the Sound of Music was my musical growing up. And so I actually kind of try and find ones that I don't know, because I know more of the traditional musicals, and they're great, and I'll play them, but it is nice to find ones. Like my first show here was Chicago, which I think I'd only ever seen the movie. So I had no idea what I was getting into. And I was the only violin in that. And that was a little terrifying, and I came back. And we were on stage for that. So, but, so I like to just try out whenever I'm needed, more or less.
Do you have a show that you have yet to play for that you hope can someday play for? Devin is saying
Devin's
Sweeney
asking
Todd.
Sweeney Todd.
Not so
Apparently
subtly.
Sweeney Todd.
I think she's looking for a play.
I'm out of town in October. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, yeah. Oh, Beauty and the Beast is a great one, too. So, I mean, I will. My only problem is I want to watch it. I want to watch Beauty and the Beast. So, maybe we can trade off violins and we can have a weekend where I can just sit in the audience and watch. Maybe.
Just hand your violin to an audience member and say,
Yes.
"Here,
Your
you get up.
turn.
I'm going to sit and
It's
watch
an
this."
interactive musical
Or,
today.
depending on how we do donation-wise, if we have a record-breaking year, maybe we get you some monitors down there. So, that is one
would
thing
be
I will say.
great.
Now, I'm
Yep.
not making any promises, but one thing I give the pit musicians a lot of credit for is you are here show after show, night after night, hearing the show, but usually not really seeing much of it. And yet you come back and you have a good time. And I'm just curious, I know in an ideal world you would love to be able to see the shows, but what is it like to be down there for 9 performances plus Tech Week and to hear the show night after night but not see it? What is that experience like?
Jim really doesn't. He's in his own world.
Jim's in an
Like,
aquarium
the only
of
thing
sorts.
that I see is the inside of my cage and the conductor and a few other people. But so, there's a part of me that kind of misses, being down there and seeing the show because I used to take my little drummer's eye pictures that I post up. But, for me as a musician, and I don't know if I speak for everybody, but speaking just for me, I really like it down there. I mean, yeah, I miss seeing the shows, but I really like the fact that, where we are now, we can be really expressive. Our dynamics can be, if we need to be up here, we can do it. If we need to be down here in volume, lower, we can do it. We have a much wider range. So just for me, I like it down there. I really do.
I like not being distracted by what's going up on stage and, getting too into the show and then missing my entrances. So I like being able to be down there. And also with percussion, it's the way to set up for percussion to be most effective and efficient is high and tight. And when we're in front of the stage, I couldn't do a lot of the things because it would be in the way of the action on stage. So down in the pit, I can go high and tight so that I can get all the instruments that I need for a production into the space. But also, I'm not distracted by the action. I can use cue lines for my entrances, but I'm not like getting into it and watching the play and then realizing, oh, yeah, I was supposed to play there, right?
And Renee, sorry, Kate.
No, you go ahead.
Jump in. But Renee, I know that you actually have been on stage as well as a performer. We were both in Inherit the Wind, so you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that was the first time I've been on stage since 2010, I think. Mostly just because, life, you get busy.
Sure.
But yeah, that was so much fun to get back on the stage. And I do have to say, it is nice being in the pit because you don't feel like you're so exposed, like you sneeze and the whole audience isn't like, who was that? Because it was probably me. And hopefully they didn't even hear it, and there's so much space under the stage. I don't know if people know, like, the massive storage we have under here that's, like, got everything. And I don't know if that's always been there or if that's something, but it really expands. Like, we don't have to have our cases right next to us. We can move our elbows around. So it's really cool down there.
So I have a special question for Liz because we were talking about Sweeney Todd prior to this, and she was describing a section of music. And can you just give our audience a taste of the percussionese that you speak when you describe rhythms?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that.
Because I think you were demonstrating like the drum patterns and you were speaking them. And I
Yeah.
know, now you know what I'm talking
I
about.
was talking about, there's a guy that I follow on a Facebook group, and he is a stellar percussionist in Seattle, and I get a lot of my inspiration and setup stuff from him, but I was watching him do the Sweeney Todd exit music, and he starts in with the xylophone. It's like da 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 and then he turns around and he's all of a sudden on a different bass drum and snare drum going holding a mallet in his mouth to get ready for bells, doon 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 doon, you know, and then does everything looks like he has 8 arms, but at the same time makes it look super simple.
I would watch an entire 24-hour
I was
live
going to say,
stream of you
we're
doing
not
that.
going to stop you. We're just
That was
do the
amazing.
entire
I mean,
story.
but that's the key. The key. I mean, I'm kind of being a little bit ridiculous with all the moves, but the key is to really have it in your body.
I don't think
right?
you're.
To
I,
have-
I understood exactly
Yeah.
where you're at in Sweeney
And I've
Todd.
seen
gotta
you
have
down
it
there.
in
That
your
is what you
body
do.
To be able to execute that,
Yeah.
you need to know exactly where it's coming and what part of your body it's coming from, right? So it's almost like a dance. It is a choreographed dance down there for percussion for sure. Yeah. To a lesser extent, drums as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing about what Liz and I do, because there is a certain amount of choreography to it, you know, and probably with her more so than me, because again, you're, you know, moving around and hitting this, and you got to be right there on that cue, and yeah, there's some people, when we used to be up front, they'd say, you know, boy, sometimes we watch you guys, you know, as much as we watch the stage.
So, Devin, you have the privilege of working with some of the most talented, if not the most talented musicians in Erie. What is that like to be at the helm of a particular orchestra, or just in that position of coordinating who's playing the different shows and all those different moving pieces?
I think well, first of all, I just feel honored to be able to move all the chess pieces around. Like I said earlier, I grew up here. Theater has always been a part of my life, and my dad was a trumpet player and I'm biased, but I think he's like one of the best conductors that I know. And
Can concur.
So he's a huge inspiration to me. And to be honest, I didn't really, I lived in New York for a really long time, and I pursued the acting world and singing, and I had success in that and whatnot, but the thing that I found that I kept coming back to was my piano skills. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for forcing me to take lessons, because it's really brought me a lot of opportunity in life. And so I moved into that world, and I just found it's like, yeah, you're painting a picture with the material that you have when you're on stage, but when you're putting together all these different sounds and figuring out, like, between my style and their style and, you know, conforming all that together, I just think that is magical. And I just have to say, a musical is not a musical without the musicians and the orchestra. And we are so freaking lucky to have people like Jim and Liz and Renee, who, for the most part, I don't think you've ever said no to me. Which is very nice. You guys have never, you always, if anything, you ask them, they're like, yep, we'll be there. Yep, we'll be there. And I've got to tell you, that is the majority of people. Like, I'm talking about you a lot today, Dad, but the other day, we had an issue with trumpets and for Newsies, and my dad was literally on the golf course, and I called Dad, and I said, can you fill in for two shows? He's never even looked at the book, and he's like, okay, I can do it.
Well, and you raise a really good point, Devin. I think that's another way that we're really lucky is it's not a little commitment that our musicians make, because there's a lot of rehearsal on your own, right? And then coming together with the actual production and working with the cast and crew. There are often times where, for whatever reason, we might have to have somebody sub in, and everyone, like you said, always steps up and helps out. And we would not be the Playhouse that we are without these musicians that are so dedicated to the work that we do.
I wanted to say, as far as prepping, when we have the reveal for the season, I go to the appropriate websites and find out the instrumentation for every single production. Is there a percussion book? I look at the instrumentation needed for that percussion book, and then I start to work on my sourcing to find everything that I'm going to need, whether I need to borrow it, whether I already have it, whether I can get it somewhere else, so that when the time comes to actually show up, I've already been doing a lot of advanced legwork, trying to make sure that I have everything in my arsenal to be able to do the show. So that's, you know.
And going back on that too, you know, us being down here, I agree. I love it. I think we have our own little bond down here. Like, we don't have to we can wear whatever we want. Like, that's,
I hope you do,
yes.
yes.
That's like very nice. But also, it takes a lot, I think, for people to volunteer their time and not be seen.
Right.
All the guts, not all of the glory, because we come out of there and people, I mean, some people will come and look over and whatnot, but half the time people don't know that it's us down there. And that just goes to show, I think, with musicians especially, and don't get me wrong, like everything back here too, but I think that just goes to show the love, and not only of being in this space, but the love for the instruments that are being played. And I'm telling you, like, for Guys and Dolls, one of the reed books required 5 different reed instruments. That's insane. And the fact that we can find people to volunteer for that is just amazing. And can I plug, if you want to be a part of the Erie Playhouse Orchestra, please email me at devin.yates@erieplayhouse.org, because I am really committed to bringing new people to the theater and being a part of this whole family. And I know that there are a lot of instrumentalists out there, and I'd love to get the roster bigger.
Yeah, and what an opportunity to learn from these incredibly talented musicians
Yes.
as well.
Couldn't
And
do
I was
without them.
just gonna say, from an actor's perspective, and I've spent some time in the pit too, but it is always so amazing to walk into that first sits probe or first rehearsal and hear CD quality performances from our pit, and to have, maybe you've heard a show entirely on a CD. When I grew up, there was no YouTube,
Yeah.
and so all you had was the CD version, and so there's that hope that when you walk in, I really hope it's gonna sound just like, and then most of the time it sounds very,
Better.
very close, or better,
Better.
yes, or
Yeah.
better at times, to the professional recording. So like we just thank
And
you
they're
so
all
much.
donating their time,
Yeah.
which is incredible. So
Well, listen, we could talk to you all.
I know,
all day.
it's
This
like,
was
I want
really,
more of-
really
I want
great.
more of the percussion,
Yeah, I love
please.
this. I love this. I do want to give everybody an update, though, and thank you all for your time today. So glad to have this opportunity to talk to you and to give you a little recognition above the stage rather than below it. So thank you all for being here. We have an updated total. We are over 20,000. We're at 20,100. That's excellent.
5,000 away from finding out.
5,000 away from finding out whether or not I spent the night at the Playhouse. 136 gifts received so far, and we are so grateful for that. Again, names are going on the marquee as well for folks who donate today. You can, of course, donate by phone by 8 p.m. by calling 814-454-0843. That's the Erie Community Foundation. They are staffing the phones over there until 8 o'clock today. And of course, you can give online all the way through midnight this year at eriegives.org, and we hope that you will.
And if you can get us up to $50,000, we'll keep Zach here so that he just stays here forever.
Moving in. I'm
Chain
moving
him down, yeah.
Is there room in the pit for me? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Always.
All right.
Symbols, the triangle.
Yeah,
YouTube,
great.
just go on YouTube and learn how to play all the instruments. That's fine.
I tried. I'm not my thing. Not my thing. Coming up at 4 o'clock, we will actually have our artistic director, Richard Davis, talking about some of our upcoming productions. And then at 5 o'clock, our showstoppers will be on stage. So stick around. We will be coming back at 4 o'clock with much more from the Erie Playhouse. Thanks, everybody.